came in and he said some things the last week that got people very angry. He said that Zelensky was a dictator and that he had, quote, should have stopped the war and never started it. That got people angry.
You think that Mr. Zelensky is a dictator?
Did I say that? I can't believe I said that. Next question.
Zelensky has canceled opposition parties, suppressed opposition press, suspended elements of habeas corpus, and suspended elections.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
Some people on the right and left said, well, even Churchill didn't have election for 10 years. Churchill came in, and the first thing he did in 1940 was have a coalition government of enemies, rivals, and friends in the war cabinet. Zelensky hasn't done that.
Mr. President, Mr. President, is the deal off? President Zelensky, can you tell us what happened?
Majority of Americans will, I think, see what Donald Trump has to deal with. Usually in international diplomacy, the client doesn't dictate to the patron, especially when the patron is hosting them. So there was a breach of protocol.
Donald Trump is incurring a lot of criticism lately on the Ukrainian war. He's trying to negotiate an end to the war. Remember, there's probably somewhere around 1.5 million dead, wounded, missing, and captured on both sides together. That is the largest casualty rate figure total in Europe since the Battle of Stalingrad in 1942 and 1943.
So we are ready for peace, but we have to be in strong position. What does it mean? Just to know that our army is strong, that our partners with us, and that we have security guarantees. Am I not right?
In a contentious Oval Office meeting on February 28, 2025, stalled negotiations over a US-Ukraine minerals deal ignited a fiery exchange between President Trump, Vice President Vance, and Ukrainian President Zelensky. The talks unraveled as Trump pushed for diplomacy and alignment with Europe over a hardline stance, even as he and Vance chided Zelensky for insufficient gratitude and resistance to a ceasefire without guarantees. Victor Davis Hanson later weighed in, noting that while Zelensky enjoys popularity in Europe, this support fails to translate into tangible aid, as European leaders lack the resources to deliver, leaving Zelensky's natural US allies, currently out of power, unable to bolster his position. Tensions escalated when Zelensky challenged Vance's call for diplomacy, citing Russia's history of violating agreements, prompting Trump to accuse him of gambling with World War III and disrespecting the US. The confrontation ended abruptly with Trump canceling the deal and Zelensky leaving the White House.
We just heard from President Zelensky. He said he does not think that he owes President Trump an apology for what happened inside the Oval Office today. Do you feel otherwise?
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
Did you sign the minerals deal? Why were you so disrespectful to the president?
I do, because you guys don't see. You guys only saw the end. You saw what happened today. You don't see all the things that led up to this. The president's been very clear. He campaigned on this. He thinks this war should have never started. He believes, and I agree, that had he been president, it never would have happened. We want to get the Russians to a negotiating table. We want to explore whether peace is possible. This agreement could have been signed 5 days ago, but they insisted on coming to Washington, and there was should have been a very clear understanding. Don't come here and create a such scenario where you're going to start lecturing us about how diplomacy isn't going to work. President Zelensky took it in that direction, and it ended in a predictable outcome as a result.
We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influenced.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influenced.
You're right now not in a very good position.
They idolize him. He's a rock star. They can't save him. They won't pay. And the people in the United States that are his natural constituency, the bicoastal elite and the left, are out of power now. The people that he does not like are his salvation. And he knows that he went to Pennsylvania in a critical swing state, campaigned basically for Kamala Harris. He knows that, and he knows that was a mistake.
And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once this entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
The irony is they're very close to an agreement. There's only one or two issues now. They've got everything solved. They will not be in NATO, but they are the best armed NATO country that's not in NATO. They are very formidable. They're not going to get back the Donbass and Crimea. Nobody ever thought they could. That was just rhetorical.
So why did Donald Trump say that? Well, of course, he doesn't believe that Zelensky started the war because he has campaigned himself on the following narrative. Under George Bush in 2008, Russia invaded Ossetia and Georgia. In 2014, under the Obama administration, they invaded the Donbass and Crimea. February 24th of 2022, under Joe Biden, they tried to take Kiev. However, of the last four administrations, there was one in which they did not leave their borders to invade another nation. My administration. Why? Because unlike the prior three presidents, I was able to establish deterrence.
There's just two issues. How far will Vladimir Putin be willing to go back to his 2020 embarkation point? And number two, how will you deter him not to do it again? And the answer is that Donald Trump came up with a very innovative idea to have a DMZ somewhere near where he, along the border, 100 miles, 50 miles, 60 miles, or no miles where they came, and then have it a commercial zone. So there's Americans there, they're profiting, they get paid back. And Vladimir Putin does not want to invade and kill Americans, which he'd have to do because the concessions are right on the border. We say we're not putting troops there. We are not putting troops there, but we're going to profit from it along with Ukraine. It'll enrich Ukraine. We'll get Europeans, and there will be a commercial corridor, and Putin will not go in there because if he does, he will face some consequences. I don't understand why Zelensky couldn't have just said, let's just do the mineral deal now. That's all we have to do.
Will Ukrainians survive without Congress support? Of course, but not all of us.
He's looking to go on and fight. He wants to come back right now, but I can't do that.
What do you make of that? Do you want to continue fighting? Do you want peace? And if he had the opportunity to go back to the White House right now, would you do it?
No. First of all, we want peace. That's why I'm in the United States.
Can Ukraine win this war or hold off Russia without continued U.S. support?
It will be difficult for us. That's why I'm here.
I have a feeling that Zelensky is going to take a deep breath and somebody's going to call up Donald Trump and say, we have a lot of differences, but let's start signing this deal on the minerals because that's going to get you near the border and it's going to deter Putin. All he has to say is, Mr. Trump, we appreciate your help, and we understand your 2 points now. You are afraid that Russia is closer to China and China is closer to Russia than they are to us, and that violated every tenet of Kissinger's foreign policy, that we have to deter the one with the other. And we've lost that because of the war. And number two, they have 7,000 nuclear weapons. So we broke we don't want to get into a Cold War situation like Cuba, where our main rival is trying to use a surrogate to hurt us, the way Khrushchev did.
Victor Davis Hanson explains that Trump achieved deterrence against Putin by projecting unpredictability and strength, avoiding major wars while decisively striking enemies like ISIS and Russian mercenaries, keeping Putin cautious during his tenure.
How did I do that? I killed Soleimani, I killed Baghdadi, I destroyed ISIS, I got rid of the Wagner. I did a lot of things that put the fear of God into Vladimir Putin. So Trump knows who started this war. So why did he say it? Now, he said, I didn't mean it that way. What he's trying to say is that this war has been going on for 3 years. And the Europeans said they were going to come in this exultation when the Russian attack on Kiev was thwarted. This guy in a t-shirt, ex-comedian, was a rock star. Everybody was going to pour weapons in and save Ukraine. We did more than either any European power or NATO in aggregate. And guess what? It didn't work. 3 years later, 1.5 million casualties later, a quarter of the Ukrainian population gone, 600,000 Russians gone, a new alliance between Russia and China. Trump wants to stop it. And he says to Zelensky, don't tell me what I can do and what I can't do. Don't say you have to be in the negotiations. You guys have had 3 years. I'm coming in. We have funded you. The other thing he's been criticized is he says, we want natural resources and minerals. They said, he's a colonialist. He's an imperialist. No, Donald Trump is saying that the United States is very tired of subsidizing and paying for far distant problems when we're running a $37 trillion national debt. If we want to be there, we want some compensation. You have valuable minerals, we'll come in and have a concession with you, a business deal. But more importantly, there's a subtext to this. He's also saying, we don't want you in NATO. Europe really doesn't want you in NATO. Russia doesn't want you in NATO, and you're scared to be in NATO yourself. If you invite American business in to Ukraine to help rebuild it and to profit thereby with natural resources, you're going to have Americans there, and Putin will be less eager to attack you if he understands there's a thriving American concession there.
President Donald Trump is a man who's made deals his entire life in business, and he's bringing those principles to government, and he's the only one in the world that has any chance. If Donald Trump tomorrow decides, I don't care about Ukraine, I don't care about Russia, and I don't care about this war, and he walks away, I ask you, I ask everyone, well, who on this planet has any chance whatsoever, even a 1% chance, of getting the combatants to the table? The answer is there is no one.
If Donald Trump ends this bloodbath, all of this rhetoric and all of this hysteria will cease, and he will be a hero both in Europe and the United States and in Ukraine and Russia.
All I can say is this. He might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened. But he didn't break them with me. He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out.
With peace negotiations now on hold, speculation grows over whether the Ukrainian leader will attempt to re-engage the U.S. president at the bargaining table, seeking to secure much-needed vital support. For now, Ukraine's future remains uncertain, with Zelensky potentially weighing the strategic necessity of compromise against a backdrop of limited alternatives. Yet, as the timeless adage reminds us, in war, the only true losers are the lives lost, a poignant truth that looms over both leaders, urging a resolution where diplomacy might yet prevail over the specter of further bloodshed.